At some point, black women's lives have to matter as equal in America.
Hello everyone, it's Queen V Line back to you with another video. This video pertains to the new developments surrounding the Breonna Taylor case. Before I get into the new developments in my commentary, I would like to send my continued support and condolences to the Breonna Taylor family as you continue to mourn the loss of a daughter, a sibling, a partner, an essential worker, and yes, a community member. It has been confirmed by numerous outlets that due to the large volume of evidence collected in the case of Breonna Taylor, a judge has pushed back the trial date for one of the former Louisville, Kentucky officer, Brett Hankison. This will mark the second attempt by prosecutors to convict Hankinson for his participation on the night that Breonna Taylor was unalive. As previously reported, Breonna Taylor was unalive in a no-knock warrant, which was later found to be flawed, aka lying, by one of the officers, Jaynes. The judge in this case has pushed the trial back until October 30th, after Hankinson's attorney asked for more time to process the massive amount of evidence turned over by federal prosecutors. Hankinson was indicted by the DOJ last year alongside 3 former LMPD officers, which include Jaynes Kyle Meany and Kelly Goodlett. Goodlett pled guilty last year to 1 count of conspiracy charge and is expected to testify in the cases against 2 more officers who were involved in crafting the Breonna Taylor warrant. They are former Detective Jaynes and Sergeant Kyle Meany, who are also charged with conspiring to deprive Breonna Taylor of her civil rights. Jaynes and Kyle Meany are set to be tried together on October 25th, as Kelly Goodlett's guilty plea has been pushed back to December 13th after the trials of Jaynes and Kyle Meany. It's worth noting that Kelly Goodlett's husband is also an officer of the law and is not supposed to be in contact with the fellow defendants in this case. Brett Hankison's attorney also cited that his team needs time to meet with use of force and crime scene experts to go over evidence. It should be noted that Hankinson was acquitted of charges brought by state prosecutors for endangering Breonna Taylor's next-door neighbors with shots he fired into Breonna Taylor's apartment that went through her walls. Hankinson retreated from the open doorway and fired 10 bullets into a sliding door and window on the side of Breonna Taylor's apartment. It should be noted that Hankinson was charged for endangering Breonna Taylor's white neighbors and not her black neighbors who were also affected during this no-knock warrant. In addition, federal charges accuse him of endangering neighbors along with Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker, who was her partner at the time. Not only did the DOJ conducted an investigation regarding Breonna Taylor, but they also did an investigation regarding the Louisville Metro Police Department and Louisville Jefferson County Metro government, in which they found a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the U.S. Constitution and federal law. They found that the LMPD used excessive force, including unjustified neck restraints and unreasonable use of police dogs and tasers, conducted searches based on invalid warrants, unlawfully executed searches without knocking and announcing, unlawfully stops, searches, detains, and arrests of persons during street enforcement activities, including traffic and pedestrian stops, violating people's rights in protected free speech, critical of policing, and along with Louisville Metro, discriminates against people with health disabilities when responding to them in crisis. The DOJ also identified deficiencies in LMPD's response to and investigation of DV and assault, including responses to allegations that LMPD officers engaged in misconduct or DV. Deficiencies in policies, training, supervision, and accountability contributed to LMPD and Louisville Metro's unlawful conduct. The report also states that Louisville Metro and LMPD engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the constitutional rights of the residents of Louisville, including by using excessive force, unlawful discriminating against Black people, conducting searches based on invalid warrants, and violating the rights of those engaged in protected speech critical of policing. This is not the only investigation that the DOJ is investigating on law enforcement. This is one of 8 agencies that the Justice Department Civil Rights Division is doing an ongoing investigation on. They include the Minneapolis Police Department, the Phoenix Police Department, the Mount Vernon, New York Police Department, the Louisiana State Police, the New York City Police Department Special Victims Unit, the Rochester MA Police Department, and the Oklahoma Police Department. Now you will watch this brief news clip and I will be back with my commentary.
Breonna Taylor, while police were executing a no-knock warrant, officers killed the 26-year-old woman after her boyfriend fired a gunshot. Jeff Pegues is at the Justice Department in Washington. He's got more on this story. Jeff, these details are very troubling.
Yeah, this is a scathing report, Gail, and it outlines unlawful conduct by the Louisville Police Department and really a culture of racist behavior. This is a report that was started after the death of Breonna Taylor, but one city leader told the Department of Justice that it's really just a symptom of problems in the city.
This conduct is unacceptable. It is heartbreaking.
Attorney General Merrick Garland called the Justice Department's findings an affront to the people of Louisville. The DOJ report concluded that Louisville officers routinely use force disproportionate to the threat or resistance posed, unnecessarily using neck restraints, police canines, and tasers, often without facing consequences.
Some have videotaped themselves throwing drinks at pedestrians from their cars, insulted people with disabilities, and called black people monkeys, animal, and boy.
The report found officers discriminate against black people, searching them more than twice as often as white drivers at traffic stops. It also said a significant number of search warrant applications failed to establish probable cause, with more than 60% of no-knock warrants and forced entries into buildings carried out against black people. In the case of Breonna Taylor's 2020 death, police were executing a no-knock warrant that one officer has since admitted contained falsified information. Months later, the city passed legislation it called Breonna's Law, banning no-knock warrants.
I don't even know what to think.
Tamika Palmer is Taylor's mother.
It's heartbreaking to know that everything you've been saying from day one has to be said again.
According to the report, police misconduct also spread to the demonstrations that followed Taylor's death, claiming Louisville officers used force against peaceful protesters without adequate justifications, attacked protesters who had already surrendered, and made mass arrests without probable cause. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg.
To those people who've been harmed, on behalf of our city government, I'm sorry. You deserved better. We can and will do better.
The DOJ investigation in Louisville is just one of 9 open investigations by the Department of Justice and by the Biden administration. Now, just to highlight a few, there is the investigation in Minneapolis post the death of George Floyd, but also now an investigation in Memphis, Tennessee, where Tyree Nichols died in police custody 2 months ago. Gail.
I am not surprised by the DOJ's findings as it pertains to Breonna Taylor and the LMPD and Louisville Jefferson County Metro government's conduct as it pertains to them violating persons' rights. As it pertains to Miss Taylor, after her initial unaliving, the LMPD went out of their way by not putting her name in the report. In addition, David McAtee, who was a known chef and entrepreneur, was also unalived by LMPD, and his body was exposed for 12 hours. Neither of their unalivings were reported by the LMPD, and Daniel Cameron, who is the Attorney General of Kentucky, has gaslit not only these families, but the community, state, and country by trying to justify not seeking justice. It is time for all of us to admit that AG Cameron failed these families and admit that these officers' conduct resulted in these unalivings, and their practices of patterns of violating persons' civil rights needs to be addressed. I am also proud that they are also doing additional investigations into patterns in which officers are conducting themselves in a way that is not upholding to their duty of service and protection of the community. It is time that we look into the matter of qualified immunity. If we do not address the aspect of qualified immunity as it pertains to police officers and civilians, we will continue to see the same results in which officers are not being held accountable for their acts as they violate civil rights of civilians. In the case of Breonna Taylor, it is clear that there was misconduct in violating her rights, in addition to covering their actions prior, during, and after her unaliving. The words of Malcolm X ring true today as it did when he was alive. Now you will watch this brief clip by Malcolm X, and I will be back with my final commentary.
The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman.
It's been 3 years since the world found out that Breonna Taylor was unalived by officers who swore to protect and serve. That's approximately 1,095 plus days with no justice for Miss Taylor. Persons have gone out of their way to dismiss this case because of their own perceived biases. Protect Black women should not only be a slogan, but it should be a way of life. Say their names, known and unknown. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Justice for Breonna Taylor. And as always, please be safe out here, and I will see you in the next video.